Okay. Hello, everybody. Glad to be here. Welcome to Reno, and I see a lot of familiar faces out there, and we're really excited you're here. And I want to thank Robert. Maybe about almost 2 years ago, Robert Goldberg said, I started talking to him about something in the restaurant. I told him a story about this feeling of entrepreneurialism and what I'm seeing in the industry right now with food and beverage and chefs and restaurant owners moving out of cities and where they were settling and moving into. And he says, you know what, that sounds so good. I'm going to put you up at a conference I'm putting on, and here we are. So, Robert, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We're glad you brought the conference here. Food and beverage is easy. I'm sure everybody out there has favorite food, favorite restaurants, favorite chefs, favorite bars, favorite things to eat. Maybe they're in your hometowns. Maybe they're traveling spaces and you travel over to Paris or you travel over to Noma or you go to French Laundry, a bunch of great places. But I don't think 10, 20 years, definitely not 20 years ago, but maybe 10 years ago, people even cared where their food came from, never mind who was cooking it. Right, I think everyone thought it was kind of the Jetsons. You pressed a button, out came the Caesar salad with chicken, right? Out came the creme brulee, and you were done. I think definitely over the last 20 years, we've started to move that way. Alice Waters was a pioneer of finding out people, where does your food come from? How come you don't know where it comes from? What are you eating? What are you putting in your body? A lot of good reasons, right? Keeping the money local where you're from, less carbon footprint, before that was a big word, and finding out how to keep the people around you employed and having a good time in their jobs. So I went to work for Alice Waters about 18 years ago. 3 weeks, stage, free work. Spent 3 weeks peeling fava beans. And on the last day, fava beans, yes. And on the last day there, I was having lunch as my reward for working for free for 3 weeks. And she came up to me and said, oh, thanks, I heard you were in the kitchen, I appreciate it. She says, where are you from? I said, Reno, Tahoe. She goes, where do you get your produce from? I said, produce guy. She's like, you don't have any farms up there? I said, I don't know. She said, why not? Okay, so she continues, right? Steak, fish, poultry. And every question I said, I don't know. And she said, why not? So I left, started crying, got on the phone, called and started to ask the question, where the hell is there any farmers around here in Reno and Lake Tahoe? And there's a lot of great restaurants around here, and they have been for a long time. A lot of great casinos in our area, a lot of great restaurants with beautiful views. And I think we might have been a little late to the game and getting started, but right now we're on a roll. Reno's got a lot of good things going on right now, as does Tahoe. So what I've seen and what the story was I shared with Robert was I do a lot of reading, right? So I'm from Boston originally, which is a great city, but I left Boston in '96 because there wasn't that many great restaurants there at that time, trying to get to San Francisco or New Orleans. So I ended up, it was with the Hyatt, and I ended up kind of in Lake Tahoe, which I didn't even know where it was. So we come out here and we open up, we start working and open up a bunch of different restaurants over the years. Some great successes, some hurt a little bit more than others. And one of the things that we noticed was, as I started opening restaurants, I became an entrepreneur because I'm just a dishwasher, and most chefs and a lot of people who start up their own businesses start at the lowest part and work your way up. I mean, I think that's really important. If you get to start at the top, that's great too. But for me, we started seeing different opportunities come up. So maybe we wanted to go to San Francisco, but something popped here in Truckee. So we said, let's open a restaurant in Truckee. And we started to do, we didn't really know, right? We didn't know what we were doing. We just were dishwashers, making French fries, having a good time. Definitely having a good time. That's one of the things that food and beverage is so fun for. But you can start to see how chefs started opening restaurants. And then the Food Network comes on, right? So now we're less than 10 years ago, if you really think about it. Less than 10 years ago, Food Network comes onto the scene, shows become popular, chefs become entrepreneurs, restaurateurs, they become brands, celebrities, they become rich, they become famous, they also become crazy, they become broke, they become all the great things that we all ride that wave together, you know? And maybe the only difference from our world is we get to do that while having a cocktail in our hand maybe and eating a good steak, right? So all these chefs and restaurateurs, you know, they start going from these big cities where when I was in culinary school back in 93, 91 and 2, we had to go to San Francisco, we had to go to New York City, we had to go to Chicago, we had to go to New Orleans to work in these great, great restaurants because that's the only place they were. All of a sudden, you start fast forward it, right? Now you're 5, 10 years ago, and chefs are leaving the big cities, and they made their bones on the great chefs, and they came back out, and they came home, whether they're from Reno, or they're from Boise, Idaho, or they're from Portland, or they're from Austin. And now you start to see what I'm going to call second-tier cities, because these places they weren't known for great cuisine. They start proliferating great, amazing restaurants. And then what follows that, right? So you have restaurants, you have bars. It's great to say you'd like to think art comes along with that, and commerce with retail stuff. But entrepreneurs start going out there, and you start leaving maybe the bigger cities or Silicon Valley or other places where all you smart people congregate to like make great things that happen in the world. You come into the smaller cities because why? Well, you can find a great university like UNR, and you can work closely with the UNR. You find different things like, right? Thank you, shout out to UNR back then, Harvard on the Hill. You find great things like you find help. You find places that have affordability, and you find you're like 45 minutes from Lake Tahoe, and now our airport here can travel anywhere. I think I saw something about you can get to Palo Alto from here really soon. You know, there's a lot of cool things going on here in smaller cities. And one of the things is what we love in the restaurants is if you make a mistake, it might not be a $5 million mistake, right? Building a restaurant, because sometimes that's what they cost. It might only be a little bit less than that, right? So you start to see the fact that you have a little bit of an ability to put a little more risk out there. You have a little ability to service a bigger clientele that's coming out and enjoys the smallness. You get to see those chefs. You get to meet those restaurant people, right? So as your startups moved out here and successful people with incubating companies and successful companies setting up shop, these cities became more and more sustainable and more viable. And the first goal of a sustainable restaurant, anyone know? Yeah, keep the doors open, right? That would be the most important thing. So we think to ourselves, we think these slower cities have offered a huge quality of life. They've offered a lot of great opportunities. And now you start to see even other cities kind of coming on. So other people have come in and they've worked, and now everyone wants to open their own restaurant. Everyone wants to work for a great place to have their own restaurant. And I think that is the most amazing thing in the world. We've taken something that used to be funny. When I said I was going to culinary school, everyone looked at me like I was crazy. They were like, "You're going to do what? Why would you ever do that?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm just kind of drawn to it." And here we are, and a dishwasher to a restaurant owner. And really, the greatest thing about it is we can all kind of walk hand in hand with entrepreneurs. And I'm not nearly as smart and have the kind of acumen, but what we do is really important. And the fact that we can serve all of you and we feel you're welcome to our city, it makes it a really fun thing for us to do. So we're excited you're here. I'm grateful you're here. Thank you, sir. All right.